Well, welcome to the South Tahoe Public Utility District. Glad to see all of you here. I realize we have some stiff competition tonight for people's attention. You know, it's Dodgers are playing the Cubs on TV, and I don't know if there's so many Dodger fans in town. But anyway, glad you could be here tonight. Just so everybody understands, full disclosure, we are videotaping the session tonight and the questions and answers, and will be posted on our website, I believe, by tomorrow. So if you know of anybody who missed it, who would like to see the questions and the candidates, that they have that opportunity. So the way we have it laid out right now, and I'll ask a question in a minute in terms of we want to modify it a little bit since we don't have a big crowd, is what the plan was when we were going to give each candidate 3 minutes to do an opening statement, and then we were going to then open it up for questions from the audience, and then each candidate would be given 1.5 minutes to answer the questions. We do have a few pre-prepared questions to fill in, and then at the end we were going to give the candidates 2 minutes to do a closing statement. Now, if you do the math, 12 questions at 1.5 minutes per candidate, and the open and closing statements would be about 1.5 hours. So if we're well under 12 questions, which we might be, given the size of the audience, we could be a little looser, give maybe people a little bit more time to answer each question. So maybe it's really up to you guys. We can see, we can see how it's.
Yeah, play it by ear.
And then how we'll work it is.
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, and how we'll work it is we'll start with, like, for the opening statement, we'll start with Nick, and then every question that's asked, we'll move down the line so the person, we switch who's the first speaker and who's the last speaker for each question. We'll keep doing that for the questions and the closing statement. So that's how we'll work it. So, and then we have Melanie and Marla sitting in the front, and they'll be timing the questions and the talks, and holding up, giving you guys a signal as to how much time you're using. Yeah. Instead of we thought it would be better than playing the music like at the Oscars or something. So, but anyway, so with that, and we obviously expect the audience to be polite and give the candidates a chance to answer the questions. So we don't need a repeat of what probably is happening on the TV now with the third debate. So with that, unless there's any questions, we can start with Nick with the opening statement.
All right.
Again, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming tonight. My name is Nick Exline, and I just want to start tonight with telling you a little bit about myself. I received my master's degree in land use planning with an emphasis in economics from the University of Nevada. I am currently an AICP senior planner with Midkiff and Associates. Beyond that, I'm a graduate of the Leadership Lake Tahoe program, former board member of the Tahoe Drug-Free Coalition, member of the Tahoe Chamber Government Affairs Committee, started my own market-driven climate change group, and work with groups around the basin to really hopefully improve Tahoe. In my role with Midkiff and Associates, I have developed contacts and relationships, both political and regulatory, from Washington, D.C. to Sacramento to the Tahoe Basin. My political and regulatory contacts, in addition to my intimate knowledge of the regulatory code, will be invaluable if I'm fortunate enough to be elected to the board. Really, throughout this campaign, I've wanted to meet as many people as I possibly could. So I've gone to every event I could, oftentimes, well, not often, always wearing my campaign t-shirt. I've been knocking on doors, I've been calling people, and up until this point, I've literally spoken with thousands of members of our community. And the most interesting thing is that regardless of age, gender, political affiliation, socioeconomic status, the thing I've found that's been uniformly discussed with me is that there's a desire for positive change, a vision for positive change throughout the community. Like, I can remember I went to a woman's house. She invited me in for tea. We had a really nice long chat, and when I got up, she gave me a hug and said, "Hey, I just wanted to thank you for talking about climate change, because I worry about my kids and my grandkids." I was at another event when the gentleman who was a plumber grabbed me. We had a long conversation, and he looked at me and said, "You know, I'm going to have to get a second job. I don't know how I'm going to make it here in Tahoe." And we had a long conversation about permit construction fees and the impacts that has on our economy. I've talked with senior citizens and young parents regarding the effects rising rates has on them. And I need you to know that I take those people with me with every decision I would make. With that, I also have been fortunate enough to meet staff. And staff shares that vision for a positive change. And I also understand that staff, this is your livelihood. This is how you pay your rent, pay your mortgage, heat your home, are going to pay for your kid to go to college. And that's very important to me, and I take you with me. Finally, this is about team. I believe in team, and I believe before you can join a team, you need to show that you can give the effort. That's why I've been working late, getting up early, going to every event I can to speak to as many people as I can, because I believe in team, and I want to be part of your team. And I want to just say thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to all your questions as they come forward. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Kirk David. My parents moved here in 1972. I was 5 years old at the time. I was a proud Al Tahoe Elementary Cougar. I graduated from South Tahoe High School in 1985. From then I went to school at UC Santa Barbara, where I got a degree in environmental studies. I spent a few months in Hawaii after that, and then moved back to Tahoe, and been here ever since. So Tahoe's home. I'm very committed and very invested in this community. Like many Tahoe locals, I enjoy being outside, and it's one of the reasons I got into construction. Started my business, Katie Builders, 20 years ago. Met my wife in Tahoe, raised my 2 kids here. They're currently going to school at San Diego State. For the last 16 years, I've been very involved in youth athletics, coaching numerous teams, and it was a great opportunity for me to, meet a ton of people and be really involved with the community, and I really loved it. And now I look forward to this new challenge and this new opportunity to help the community and be involved in the community, working for the district. The district has many challenges, as I've learned recently, and starting to learn some more with capital improvement projects and numerous things on the docket that are going to cost a lot of money. And I understand why the current board, voted for these rate increases. I also understand the Tahoe local, and that's a big concern for me, is keeping our people here. It's difficult running a small business. It's difficult finding a good professional job. It's difficult to raise a family, and we got to learn, or got to figure out how to control the rates, and the $1 million question, how you do that, and invest in these capital improvement projects. And I just know that I will make the right decisions, and if elected, will be a good voice for our community. I've had the pleasure to meet a lot of people here. The work environment here is awesome. Everyone's very professional, very courteous, and I look forward to being a part of this team. And if elected, I will make the right decisions for people here. Thank you.
Well, most of you know me. My name's Randy Vogelsang, and I've been on the board for 1 term. I've been the board president for the past 2 terms, which I consider quite an honor that the rest of the board put me into that spot. Prior to that, I was on the operations committee for 3 years. This being an unusual, shifted, long 5-year term. So through both those positions, I've managed to learn quite a bit about the district. Let me back up a little now. I run a structural engineering business in town. I've done it for almost 30 years now. I've got a very big client base. In fact, if there's one fault to my business, is I annoy people because I refuse to take a lot of work. That's a good thing. And the reason I bring this up is my clients tell me that they like my engineering because it's common sense, it's cut straight to the point, there's not a lot of extra wasted things, and they enjoy that. And I consider that an overall philosophy on everything I do. I like to approach things from practical, common sense, and economical point of view. And so transitioning onto the board here on my first term, I try to look at everything we do here in that same light. I try to look at efficiency. Can we eliminate things? Is something redundant or superfluous? Or can something be done better? Kirk brought it up a little bit earlier. We had a hard decision to make a few years ago about rates. And one of the first things I did on the board, being on operations committee, I really spent a lot of time taking a look at what condition our facilities were in. You know, they obviously, you could upgrade everything in town. We've got undersized water lines, we've got aging equipment, but the question is, how do you most effectively do that? And I try to apply the same business decisions I do when I engineer somebody's house or a commercial building, when I make decisions on behalf of the district. So I guess in summary, the main thing I guess I'd like to impress is it can be difficult at times to strike that balance between the ratepayers, how much money you're going to ask them to give us to do infrastructure projects, and how much those infrastructure projects really need to be done. And I think that over the past, my first term, I think the board's done a very good job of doing that, and I hope to continue. Thank you.
Last but not least, I am Kelly Sheehan. I moved to South Lake Tahoe in 1981. I met my husband here. We raised our 2 daughters here. I had a 30-year career in banking, and then I decided to make a change and bought a bar and grill, and I've been managing that for the last 8 years. And I too, I was elected at the same time as Randy, and I have that little different 5-year term that we've served. And I agree with Randy. It's such a balance that needs to be struck. You know, we have to keep it, you can't ignore the infrastructure, and yet you can't ask our customers, our population to, you know, pay unfairly. And so it's really hard. And I just have to say that for me, I am a people pleaser. I like people to like me. And I've made some really hard decisions, and those decisions were based on fact and what I thought was best for our community and for this district. And I would like to serve again because I think I've learned some valuable knowledge here. Thank you.
Okay, so now it's the audience's chance to ask our candidates a question. And so in answering it, everybody will answer the same question, so you don't direct your question to an individual. You know, everybody answers, and Kirk will lead off with this first question, responding to the first question. So
Don't all go at once.
if you want to ask a question, why don't you just stand up and... Okay, need to warm up, everybody. I'll start off the question.
Okay, you remember what I told you, Richard.
Okay. How would you describe the role of a board member? You take the lead.
Thank you. Role of board member, I think, is to obviously make the decisions. You know, they've got to set policy and make the financial decisions and the tough decisions on how we move forward. I know I would be a good team member. You obviously got to be a good team member to be a board member. Work well together. There's no doubt that I would work well if elected with the current board and whoever else would be on here. I just know that teamwork is big, making smart decisions with the community in mind, the district in mind. That's it.
Okay, I guess it's my turn. Well, basically the board sets policy. We decide rates. We actually, the staff spends a lot of time developing a list on what condition the infrastructure is. They put together 5-year, 10-year plans on what needs to be done when, but ultimately the board decides what to do. They decide if they need those rate increases to handle that or not. Another important, very important job the board has is employee negotiations for potential COLAs, everything to do with healthcare, anything of that is also board related. I think the board only has two employees. We have Richard and our legal staff. So not only in addition to setting policy, we have to give our employee a very clear idea of where we are, what our philosophies are, and it's up to him to implement it. One of the important things this next board is going to have to do, Richard is going to be retiring very soon, and this next board will be hiring his replacement. So that's a very critical duty that this board also has to perform.
So I agree with what my predecessor said. We set policy, we set rate changes, we guide staff, and we have to make the decisions with the help of staff. And I guess I feel as though I'm a support. You know, I support the community and I support the staff here in helping to prioritize what is best for the district, for the infrastructure, and for the community.
How's it going? So fundamentally, beyond just setting policy, we need to set vision. There is a lot we can do in this community, and we have to recognize it. We have to recognize the role we play and the opportunities we have. And with that, we need to be very cognizant of that as we set our vision and our policies going forward. Along with that, we have to be very conscious of what the community thinks of us. Again, going back to meeting people, there's a lot of perceptions, true or untrue, about the board, and that needs to be addressed, not both through our policy making and how we move forward as an agency. Because whereas we do all the other things, we set rates, we hire, we negotiate with staff, those are roles of the board. But fundamentally, we need to set a vision, very clear and very concise, and something that can be aspired to by not only staff, because a staff that's inspired will do a much better job and will be much happier at their job. But we also need to make sure that we're conveying that message to the community, because if we can bring all people on board, again, there's a lot we can accomplish. And that's fundamentally the job of the board member. And thank you very much.
Okay, and Randy gets to go first this time.
Not very polished, but obviously I'm the HR director here, and my concern is for the employees. So you mentioned, Randy, negotiations, and we have contract negotiations coming up this year. I'd like to know, how do you balance recognizing the staff, the professionalism, the high levels of certification, the knowledge and experience against the community's perspective that we are overpaid?
Thanks, Nancy. You kind of hit the nail on the head with that one. You know, as being a board member for 5 years, it's a common complaint that I get in town is oh, you guys are overpaid. But let me back up a little bit. When we negotiate on behalf of the ratepayers, because that's really who the voters vote us, they're the ratepayers, that's who we work for as a board. So when we are their representation, when we're in a negotiation and employee contract, the union or the management staff, they have their representatives. I may go a little longer on this one, Melanie, so humor me. But so it can set up an adversarial thing, us against them, but it doesn't necessarily have to be, because we respect the employees, we respect their expertise, but yet on the other hand, we owe a duty to the ratepayers and the voters to negotiate the best contract we can in terms of economics. Now, to your point about our perception that we're overpaid with the rest of the town. Now, you got to remember that, in fact, I was just, Nancy Carey today mentioned something about how the median household income in this town is something like $44,000. Median, halfway in the middle. Just about every of those up above are government employees, city, STPUD, but that is by necessity in a lot of cases. You can't compare a level 3 treatment plant operator to someone who, I know my time's up, there goes the bell, but we can all go longer on this if you guys want to. Is that okay?
30 seconds.
30 seconds. Well, the thing is, if we got a position open and it has a certain certification, we put jobs out. We compete with small districts, big districts all over Northern California, Northern Nevada. We have to pay a prevailing wage, not just to be able to get a talent pool to come here. And that by necessity is going to make our wages a little bit higher than the average community around there. I wish we had more industry, more better paying jobs in town so we could bring everybody else up as opposed to trying to bring what we have here down. Sorry about that, guys.
Yeah, that is a tough question, Nancy. Thank you. But this, as you said, there's certifications, and as Randy said, we have to be able to attract people to want to come to Tahoe. And, I think it's kind of historic that the entry-level positions, with less certifications, less education, they're very easy to fill because there's so many applicants. But for some of the other positions, it's hard to get people to come here because and you know this better than I don't want to misquote, but we're still below the median for, districts like districts of ours. And we need to attract the best and the brightest, and we need to attract people to want to come to Tahoe, to be part of our community, and to stay here. And so it is a fine balance, and it is hard. And having gone through the negotiation process, it's hard, but you need to be fair-minded and think what's best for both the employee and the district.
So I would add that I think there's a little bit more to the calculation that needs to be considered along with this. Like I've said before, working with regulatory agencies, both from the federal to local level, what's interesting and I think needs to be accounted for is the cost to either the ratepayer, the permittee, so on and so forth, when you have high staff turnover. Because what happens fundamentally is if you're going through a project process, you're working through difficult things, and I'm sure the board and people on staff have experienced this, and you have high business turnover, or high employee turnover, you're going to have a loss. And so, again, it's about building a dialogue with the community and explaining that this is our water. To ensure a high level of service, we need to have the best. We need to have the best and brightest people here in the Tahoe Basin. But how do you create that? And again, it has to be a conversation with the community, because I think we all agree fundamentally that you need to have a highly paid staff that can do a great job, that can provide the service, and that you can attract to the basin. But that's not the problem. The problem is, how do you make people outside understand that? And the way to do that is to open up dialogue and have the conversation. Because right now, people don't feel like they're having the conversation. People understand that in their community that they're broke, that they can't pay their bills, but they see their rates going up and what is a perceived understanding of people making more money. Fair or unfair, that's what's being seen. So you need to make people understand. You need to have the conversation with people so we can look at it and say, true, these people are making a living wage, but fundamentally, I believe the question should be, how do we raise all wages instead of decreasing some for others? And how do we get the message out to the people in the community that these are a necessity, these are our neighbors, and they're doing the good work, and we need them here in the Tahoe Basin. So really, it's about dialogue and opening the conversation up with the community to make them understand, to kind of get away from these perceptions that tarnish everyone that works here at the agency.
Speaking of turnover rate, it seems like people that work at this district stay for a long time, and that's a tribute to this environment. And obviously, whether they're making top dollar or not making top dollar, they're staying here for a long time. And when you get into the professionals and the specialists, you're going to have to pay a decent wage. And I think we're paying a decent wage here right now. I have to learn some more on that. I shouldn't say I need to learn stuff, but I do.
No, you know everything.
I don't know everything. And cost of living versus comparative companies. I would personally agree with the cost of living increase versus comparing. That's more controlled and I think is deserved by most people, especially if you're working for a government agency. You're going to get that. One of my big concerns is not the amount of money you're making. It's the cost of the benefit package. And new hires are going to have a smaller percentage of retirement system, which is going to help. I'm concerned with rising health insurance rates, not just how much we're costing per person right now, but what's going to happen next year or 5 years from now, and how is that going to be paid for? If rates are going to go up 10% or 5% each year with health costs, how we address that in the future.
Okay, next question.
You know, Richard, I don't want to be presumptuous, but if any of you guys have anything you want to talk about a little more, we can kick that around. A couple of things when these guys were talking just popped up in my head. One is I felt we've done a pretty good job over the past term increasing transparency here at the district, and that goes to what Nick was saying. And I think that's something that we should, moving forward, continue to work on. Now, part of that is I'm looking at this fancy new computer screen right here in front of us. This is a brand new system we've got, and this particular forum is going to be posted on our website tomorrow, both audio and visual. And we're going to start doing that with all of our meetings from now on to get more out. And then before our rate increase, we had Proposition 218 notice that we did numerous workshops, invited the public in, got their feedback, explained why, showed the infrastructure that we were upgrading, what we were doing. And I think that was really helpful in that there wasn't a lot of pushback from the public on those rate increases. So going to what you guys said, I think that's important. So I filibustered enough. Why don't you guys take the ball and run with it?
Well, I'll pat our board on the back as well, because I feel as though we have, and I think that every board member that we have right now, and I think that Nick and Kirk would be the same way. I think there's respect, there's no animosity, everything is done in a very professional manner, and that's something I'm really proud of. And I just think that the transparency, we've just done a wonderful job. Richard has been out, to every service group there is, always looking for opportunities to spread our message per se. And so I think that that's something very positive, and I think that's something that definitely should be continued.
I think we need to do more, and I'm going to tell you why. Because we fall into a cyclical problem with all our problem-solving mechanisms, and let me tell you why. We start talking to professional groups, great. We start talking to small businesses, these different things. There's a huge percentage of people that don't fall within that category, that don't feel like they've heard their voices heard, that don't think they're invited, that are scared about the government process, so when they get something in the mail, they're thinking, I don't want to go. That's the overwhelming majority of the people that live in this community. That's the reality. That's what I've learned through this experience. And so how do we reach out to them? First of all, we have meetings at 2 o'clock. I've come to say that if you have a party and you invite people when you know they can't come, they're going to think you don't want to invite them. Whether it's on the internet or not, people have this perception. This is what I'm saying to you. This is overwhelming. We need to start to think outside the box. How can we get those people that aren't traditionally involved, the people we talk to over and over again? How do we talk to the people that aren't in professional groups? How do we talk to the people that are just out there in the community, that have little money, the people that are really struggling? Those are the people we're not reaching. Fundamentally, that is what I've learned through this process, is that is who we're not talking to. So we can talk about this all we want, but until we address that concern, how do we get to those people? These perceptions are gonna persist. And not only that, the people that have the biggest stake in the game, a few dollars more on my water bill doesn't affect me. But the people it does affect, those are the people that aren't showing up. Those are the people that are gonna have the biggest impact and have the most detrimental situation as a result of rate increases. And how do we reach out to them? That's where the conversation needs to go. Fundamentally, and this goes back to the idea of vision, how do we create the vision to bring those people in the fold? And that's what I want to work with staff and the community on, and how to get these people involved.
I agree with the 2 o'clock meeting start. That's difficult. I'd prefer like a 4 o'clock, 4:30. That'd be perfect for me.
Well, just to let you know, Nick, I agree with you. And we have discussed about how to increase our presence in social media and different things to try to get out to people that we aren't reaching. But I will let you know that when we have had evening meetings, we have had very poor turnouts, despite information in the bills, information on the website, putting out press releases in the online papers and the Dead Tree papers. So it is a challenge, and I want to keep working that direction as we go forward. But I'm not quite convinced right now that the evening meeting is a cure-all.
Yeah, I don't think, regardless of what time you had a meeting, that many people are that interested to come sit in a meeting and listen to some of this rhetoric. But
it's not about getting them in the door. It's about allowing them to think they can come in the door. That's what it's about.
Just a little historical perspective. Years ago, back in the 1990s, I can't remember the day, the year it changed, but our board meetings used to start at 4 o'clock, 4 p.m., and then obviously extend into the early evening, depending upon the turnout. And other than my recollection on those meetings is other than, again, maybe rate increase hearings or something like that, it didn't seem like we had a whole lot of public at those meetings either. But one of the things, and also a little historical perspective, we had a position at the district called the District Information Officer. And when the incumbent retired, we chose to see how we could handle the public outreach and reaching the community with our messages without a district information officer. Plus the fact that we looked at the fact that we would save money, and you're always trying to, I think as a business, you're always trying to minimize the salary and benefits portion of your budget, because that allows you to put more money into, your CIP. But one of the things and you remember the discussion Randy had that said was, the only employee you really have is a general manager. Well, but one of the things I did invite the board into giving me feedback on was, you as the ones who are out in the community, if you see that we're not reaching the community, or if our public outreach is falling down versus what it was, we need to have that dialogue, and you and myself and the rest of the staff needs to decide if we want to refill that position. That's, we haven't eliminated it from the work chart. It's just gone unfilled for a few years, and we've been doing a continuous evaluation of the need for that position. So that's something that if you're a board member, you'll be working on and have that chance to dialogue about that.
Richard, I believe there's a question up front here.
Oh, okay. It's your turn to speak first.
What would you advise, talking about the public law, what would you advise us to pay attention to so that if we want to have a good future, that what kind of things that could give that would be helpful? Like I hear you guys talk about the balance between continuing infrastructure and like that's really understandable to me that as a member of the public, when I see the notice come through from STPD about a rate change, I just think, well, I don't really know what input to provide, except that I think it's very slow, like what kind of input could the public give that would influence your decision?
Well, I think that as we talked about before, the last process, and I don't know the exact number of meetings, but we had open forums meetings. We had them at different times in the afternoon and in the evening, and we did have some really good public input. So any input is good. Just to come and to voice your opinion or voice your situation, to ask questions. I don't think there's any specific way that it's more beneficial. Just the fact that you come and that you're present and that you speak, that in itself is enough. And I think that, as a board member, I listen to what everyone has to say. And I appreciate anyone who does take the time to come here and give us input.
I really think it comes down to a point of where are we today and where are we going to go in the future, and how do we get people to sign on to that vision, that forward progress? Because as it sits right now, people get something in the mail that says your rate's going up. Immediately they have a negative impact about STPUD, because that's really all they know. They pay their bill, they see rate increases. Let's bring them in now. Let's bring them in. Let's create a situation where we can start having a conversation about what do we want to do? What do we want to be about as a community, as a water district, for our water and sewer? Because this is our water. Fundamentally, it sustains all life on this planet and is very rare in the universe. What are we going to do? How can we create a vision bringing in all people from the economy, from all sectors of the economy and our community, to bring in, to come to create a common vision? Because if some people have something they can grab hold of and have some vested interest in, they're going to be more excited about being engaged. But when all you get, I'm telling you, when all you get is something in the mail saying, we're going to have rate increases, not only do you turn people off, you also ensure that they're not going to be engaged with you through the process because they have a disdain for what's going on. So we need to bring people in early, we need to bring them in often, and we need to create a situation in which we can get people on board to some common theme, to some common vision about what we're going forward to. And that's how I want to bring community engagement in. Not just like when the ratepayers come out, because that's too late. We need to bring people in before that.
You know, involvement is great, and if everyone was more involved in everything, it would be good for everybody. It would be great to know what everyone's concerns are. I don't know if I want to pay someone a bunch of money to find that answer out of our budget, but you know, the bottom line is what's most important to everyone. Is it rates, or is it turning your faucet on and having, you know, the best water that we all have ever had, which is Tahoe water? You know, is it flushing your toilet and having it work? Or, you know, yeah, you're probably going to have good water and you're probably going to be able to flush your toilet, but, you know, we took some risks in not fixing some of our systems. So, you know, there's a lot of tough questions that the experts here study and figure out, and community involvement, answering those questions with what is most important to them would be good to know. But there's a lot of complicated issues involved with that too.
You know, Katie makes a good point. If the water works, if the toilet flushes, we're kind of out of sight, out of mind. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, it's not terribly exciting to talk about water and sewer water-sewer delivery, you know, and that's okay. And it goes to Nick's point, okay, yeah, bringing them in the door, it's a tough sell. We don't have a very glamorous product. You know, we're just a regular utility. But that being said, I think that the present board and anyone in this up here would do a good job of, you go to the meetings, you learn as much as you can, you make the decisions based on all the information you can gather. I've had people tell me just straight up, look, it's a complicated deal. I got a busy life, I got a lot of things going on. I trust you to make the decisions I would make if I was as well informed as you were. And that's important to me. So that's what I take that as a very big responsibility, is to learn absolutely as much as I can about each and every project that we're proposing to either fix up or build or whatever we're doing. And actually, that's the way the representative republic should work. So I hope that helps a little.
Again, just a perspective, one of the other tools we've used, I think, to help answer your question is every few years in the past, we've hired a professional customer survey company, and they've gone out and done, you know, they do hundreds and hundreds of telephone interviews with customers, and they try to do, I think it's 400 or 500 residences. They try to do at least 50 businesses, and they try to get a feel for the community, what their perception of the district is in terms of issues, in terms of costs, in terms of, when they interact with the staff directly, what are their experience. So, and we use that to sort of provide feedback for where we're going and what we need to improve on. So that, again, that's another tool in the tool basket. We can cost some money, but it does provide some valuable input. Next question. And Nick goes first this time. Yeah.
Oh, that's easy. Best question all night. Well, fundamentally, like I said, if you haven't got it yet, I like to look at what the potential exists and what we can do. And so again, working with every regulatory agency, you start to get themes. You see what the city council's doing. You see what the TRPA governing board's doing. Working on various issues, sustainability, planning, permitting, these type of different things. You want to go where innovation is taking place. And what really sold me, to be completely honest, about running for the STPUD board was the hydro line you built on the sea line. Because I saw what was going on in other sectors of our community. We had the city council that was quibbling over a plastic bag ban. You know, that was the reality within our community. But then there was an agency that was actually doing things that could start to solve problems. And so I like to solve problems, and I like to work with smart people. And so fundamentally, if you want to solve problems and you want to work with good people, I'm going to tell you the best place to go is a building full of engineers because they do nothing but solve problems. There's creativity that exists here that doesn't exist in any other agency, and that's why I want to work with it, because we can do so much. This isn't just hyperbole. This isn't just something I'm saying. This is to the core of what I believe. And so why I want to work with this agency is because of that opportunity, because of the mental and brain capacity that exists here, because of the people I met at different events and told me what they would like to do if they only had the opportunity, and it sounded great. I want to give those people that work in the agency a voice as well, because there's nothing you could say that would be out of bounds. I like out-of-the-box thinking. I don't care if you're an intern. I don't care if you're the general manager. I'm going to listen to you equally, because great ideas come from within, and that's why I want to work for the that's why I ran for the STPUD board.
Yeah, I mostly agree with Nick. You know, it would be very educational, be a challenging job. I look forward to, you know, learning a lot about the company and about this business, and working with, like I said, a lot of people I met. You know, this is a great work environment, and it's community involvement. You know, I've been here my whole life, and I feel like I could be a good voice for our community, make the right decisions or the best decisions I can make, and you know, I think it'd be a great district and place to be, and I'm excited about it, and I think I would learn a lot selfishly, and I think I could do some good.
I like the part about the smart engineers, because everybody knows us engineers are so brilliant. Yeah.
I was thinking more civil than structural.
Yeah. Actually, I'm both. But anyway, what's funny, because I'm getting off track here, but I always think when people start talking about engineers, they talk about nerds and all these other things. So actually, to say they were smart kind of cracked me up a little bit. I kind of want to continue what I got on the board in the first place was I wanted to see from the inside how well this district was run, and if there was some ways we could run it better, more efficient, to give the ratepayers the most bang for their buck. And I'm going to just continue on the same thing as what I said before. I spend the time, I do the homework. I've been on the finance committee for the last couple of years after learning the nuts and bolts on the operations committee. On the finance committee, you really get into every line on the budget, and you go through it dollar by dollar, and try to decide, you know, do we really need to spend this year? Could we wait till next year? Should we have done it last year? And so my purpose for really wanting to go one more term on the board, and that's probably going to do it, because I'm sure by then the staff will be sick of me, but one more term on the board to continue making sure that the ratepayers' dollars are being spent most effectively.
I want to also continue for the same reason, because I feel as though I've learned so much in these last 4.5 years. And I started, for the first 2 years, I was on the finance committee, and I am not an engineer. I own a bar. And prior to that, I was in banking. My husband's in construction. I feel as though I represent the average person. I'm not here to ask staff projects that I want to see completed. I'm here to represent the everyday person in our community, which is what I am. And I feel as though I still have a lot to offer. And I feel as though I have no personal agenda. I feel I'm a good listener. I do my homework. And I want what is best for our community. And that's why I want to continue on the board.
Okay. And Kirk gets to go first on this.
I'm Lucy Ryan. I'm a member of the engineering staff. We haven't been talking about engineering, so I have sort of an engineering question for y'all. In my 10 years at the district has been very successful in finding money from outside sources for upgrading our water infrastructure. And I don't know if everybody realizes that on the sewer side, a lot of our sewer collection system was installed over a very short period of time, late 1960s, early 1970s. So a little bit of math, we're coming up on 50 years on most of that infrastructure, which is kind of a magic number in the engineering field as far as, you know, lifetimes of civil structures. Some last a lot longer, some last not quite so long. So, my question is, what ideas do you have for finding funding to support the looming challenges that we have on the sewer side, and to keep us successful on that side?
Good question. One of the smart ones, I see. I know you have some grant writers here and can get some grants. Obviously, that would be something to look into as far as finding money, tax increase or rate increases, other avenues. I'm not too familiar with, the state of California and how that works. So very challenging, and my best guess would be rate increases. So.
One of the things I've learned is how good our grant writing staff is. Lynn is right back there. She's kind of sneaking along the back there. Does a very good job of looking for grants. But you're right, Julie. The grants seem to be easier on the water side. The fire partnership that we get money to upgrade from the Dianne Feinstein has been real helpful in that, and the sewer just doesn't seem to be as much money out there. However, we did get funding for the sea line to get that hydro project in there, which made it pencil out economically. More things like that. If they're there, we're going to aggressively pursue them. But one thing I will say is on the aging infrastructure on the sewer side, technology has gone a long ways on that, and you know this better than I do, is there are all kinds of cool things we can put down inside sewer pipes and can find out the conditions of them. That's one of the reasons we found out the B-line is in better shape than what we thought it was considering its age. It's the reason we found out behind Chevys. I was going to say Carlos Murphy's. I was going to date myself. We found out by running a camera through there that there was basically no sewer line. So all of a sudden that project got moved up. So it doesn't really answer your question. Money's always hard to get, and I think we should do our best, but I think technology is going to help us out a little bit to really put the money where it's needed the most.
I basically agree with Randy. We have a wonderful grant writing staff. It is hard because the sewer isn't as glamorous as the water. It doesn't have the opportunities. But I would say we would have to just pursue every avenue. And I agree with Kurt. Probably rate increases if it comes to that.
So since I've been running this campaign, if you've seen anything I've written in the paper, any of my videos, what I've been talking about is essentially looking to cut with infrastructure. You have so much cost fixed. We all understand this. And so how can you look to cut costs with things that aren't fixed? One of the things I've been talking about is renewable energy, sustainability, and using that as a mechanism to cut costs. And so what I would encourage every one of you to do when you get home tonight, Google water districts, renewable energy cost savings. This is a real thing. There's a district in Stockton right now that installed solar and is now saving $9.5 million. There's opportunities that exist within this field and exist today. I work in it intimately, daily. I follow the market very, very closely. What we need to start doing is, again, thinking outside the box, not what we're doing today, but what we could do to save energy. Because if we can start to look to save money on these non-fixed costs, energy, these type of different things, we could use that money to start to finance those infrastructure projects. Because fundamentally, it goes back to it. We can't continue to raise rates. People simply can't afford it. If you look at the cost of living, compare that to the median household income, the rate increases you're going to put on the community is going to go to a smaller group of people, and you're going to have to subsidize the rest. That's what's going to occur. So as a result, why don't we start looking outside the box? Why don't we start looking, well, what can we do that would both help the ratepayer through lowering their cost burden, and also help the environment by using some renewable energy and something that we can be proud of? And again, this goes back to the idea, if we can create a vision as to why we're doing all of this, people will start to respond. I tell you, people will respond to this idea if you can bring it forward and you can make it pencil, and I like to have that conversation.
I think the operative word there is make it pencil, because this board has looked into alternative energy things, and past boards have. Without heavy government grants, they don't pencil currently. we'll always looking forward to it to see if we can make it pencil, which we did on the Sea Line.
I have to say I disagree. Like I said, I work in it every day. I'm telling you, if you looked at this 2 years ago, the marketplace has probably dropped 50 to 70%. We need to look at it today. I will have this economic, it's a long conversation. I will have this economic conversation with anyone that wants to have it in depth. So if you email me, call me, because I would love to have this conversation with anybody.
Hey, Steve. And Randy goes first.
I developed about a year and a half as a so I'm still on the ground and learning the curriculum and also the community. If your I guess I was curious if there was one thing that would accomplish your current.
Wow. Okay. One thing. Well, up until now, you've heard me lay out what my objectives are and balancing infrastructure with rates, looking forward to what projects need to be done, how to get them done. So to put one thing up front, I mean, it's very tempting. I mean, I'm a cheap guy. It's very tempting to me to say, I'd really like to never raise rates, but I just can't see, I can't promise that. But yeah, you know, I'm gonna give you a weaselly non-answer on that one, because I just don't think there's I could put my finger on one thing.
Yeah, it's a tough question, and I don't think there's one specific thing, one project or one accomplishment, but I would like to, when I left the term, to leave the district for our community a good place to work, that provides good service. And yeah, there is no one specific thing. I just would like this district to be successful and to be beneficial to our community.
Progress, fundamentally progress, and progress on so many different avenues. Progress on, you know, our energy consumption, progress in lowering our carbon footprint, progress in marketing, how the agencies in this district is looked at through the community, because you're doing it oftentimes giving people water, but it's thankless. Progress to make sure that people understand that what you're doing, that you're not overpaid, that you're doing a good job on the behest of them. Progress to market our environmental campaign, because fundamentally you're doing some phenomenal things, but you get such a diminishing return on how people perceive it. Progress to understand that where we are today, from technological advancement, from the opportunities that exist, from grant funding, progress to bring things into the 21st century, progress to have a district and a community that we can be proud of. That would be the one thing I would want, is just progress, bringing us forward, bring us from where we are today to a better place tomorrow.
I would say my goal would be, obviously, looking at the way things are going, it's probably going to be hard not to keep increasing rates a little bit, but to control those rate increases. You know, the 6 and 6.5% rate increase that we're on right now and voting on in a few months to keep going, and maybe we need to this year, I don't know for sure or not, but to control those rates, to get those at a controlled rate where it's not going to exponentially just keep going up, and up, and control our costs somehow and find the magic funding. I don't know, but to control our rates and not keep climbing at the rate we're doing right now.
All right.
About rate increases, but I thought that I don't think you can especially with housing affordability, you know, how do you balance subsidy capacity with those of us who already have paid that capacity, and if you lower those subsidies, then yes, that benefits relative to paid capacity. I mean, how do you see that balance, and how do you address that? I think it's getting formed recently, it keeps coming up. Well, stupid's charging so much for the construction fee that I can't come out.
I have to say, I think our capacity charges are a bit high. I think that the current board, I think Randy will agree, we think that they should be looked at so that we can, encourage a customer base, so we could create new customers for ourselves. And yes, it is, it's just like with the water meters. I built my house in '93. I had to put a water meter in. Someone prior to that didn't. They're getting theirs for free. It's just difficult, and I think that we need to make it a little easier to build, and not to have that our reputation as being the stumbling block to building. Like, I can't afford to build a house because of the capacity charges. That's stupid. So I think it should be looked at, and yeah, it might be a little unfair to, those of us who did pay the higher fees, but I think it is something that we should look at, and I think that it should be more affordable.
The existing permit construction fees have an incredibly disproportionate negative impact on small business and lower income individuals. So what I would propose is this, is we would do a staggered rate fee system with multipliers and different things. TRPA does certain things similar to this. So fundamentally, right now, the problem with permit construction fees is it's a distorted marketplace. And why it's distorted is because you have so many people paying these fees, second home, VHRs, that don't live here. So the fees are based at a level, and this is basin-wide, based on that reality. What we need to do is lower those fees, stagger them. Again, you could stagger them and you'd have multiplying effects based on square footage, say, of a residence, commercial space, various different things that we could all negotiate. But what you would do is, starting at a rock bottom price, or at a very low price, you could incentivize redevelopment. Because where this isn't even anecdotal, someone through my time on this campaign told me they were looking to do a granny flat for a family member above their garage, but were thwarted as a result of high permit construction fees. And you think, well, that has a negative impact for the person that had that happen. But no, this has a systemic effect throughout our economy. Every time a project doesn't start, that's that plumber I referenced earlier that had tears in his eyes that's not working. That's a contractor that's not working. That's Meeks, that's our lumber stores not selling equipment. From an environmental perspective, our single greatest contributor to our carbon footprint is our energy inefficient structures. We need to accelerate, from an environmental perspective alone, the retrofitting of our buildings. And with that, you'll not only get improvements and a facelift to our community, which is desperately needed, which will just bring an overall lift to our community, but you also get more people back at work. It has a disproportionate impact both on our local economy and on our environment, and it really needs to be addressed.
Well, obviously, my business, yeah, I think the fees are too high. So it would help me being lower. But quite honestly, it's economy dependent. Right now, everyone's busy. Construction is big, and people aren't complaining as much. The economy starts going down a little bit, and people want to build, then those fees are talked about a lot more. I think they're a little bit too high. What's only 3% of your total gross revenue, which isn't a huge number. So I think decreasing that a little bit to encourage building would be good. I kind of agree with Nick too on the square footage idea, and have a little bit of a sliding scale fees, especially for the big mini mansions we got going on, or mansions. So, that's a tough call. But I think they're a little bit too high, and I'd like to look into that more if elected, for sure.
Well, we are all in agreement. When I first got on the board, there had been a study on capacity charges, and the study concluded that we were way too low. So there was a 5-year system of increases every year over those 5 years to get to that target that the study said. I came on the board 3 years into that 5-year deal, and my argument at the time to halt those next 2 years, to not have those increases, was this: 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, 3-bedroom, 3-bath house, total fees, TRPA, school tax, everything, $50,000. 30,000 of it came to SDPUD. It was disproportionate, and I felt that it was really important that, although we had this fancy study, we had to consider our role in the community. And I would rather have a long-term customer than discourage them. When the board changed at the following election, it's still stuck in my craw a little bit, and we got it actually rolled back, I think, was it 1 step or 2 steps?
25%.
Yeah, we rolled it back another 25%. So the next board, maybe we can make some more progress. But more to the point, we weren't really talking about single-family dwellings. We were talking about community and low-income housing and that kind of stuff. And so I think there's, in fact, just at the last board meeting, we talked about getting involved in these community groups that are discussing these issues. Deb Howard is heading up one. And I think that STPUD going forward will be a player in all of these different community planning groups so that we are at the table with these folks and we aren't the bad guy that stops these things, because part of it's perception, part of it's communication, and part of it is, I think we're charging too much.
Also, another note, the governor just signed a bill down in Sacramento responding to the housing shortage, I think particularly maybe in Southern California, but defining, we have to look up exactly what a granny unit is, but it basically ordered kind of municipalities to grant the permits in utility districts to not charge capacity connection fees for these granny unit additions to the existing housing stock. So so that might relieve, and maybe the plumber was talking about probably somebody adding a unit, like a little living unit in the back of the house. We wouldn't, per this bill, it sounds like we wouldn't be charging any capacity connection charges for them to hook up. So that's might be a little relief for some of the projects that people envision around town. Questions? Lou, I think you've got a question. I thought you were signaling me. Sheesh. I thought you were signaling me. Okay. That's a question for me, or a question for the board members? I think it should be the board members answering the question,
Whose
right?
turn is it to start first?
I'm just going to say, we were talking baseball before he came up, and if he's a Dodger fan, I'm going to have to say no.
No, I was going to root for the Cubs, though.
Richard, I was like in shock. Richard's a Dodger fan.
Making sure, got to check these things out before you make an answer.
In that case, yes.
So Lou, is that a serious question to us? Would we hire Richard if he would come back? No.
There was 3, and almost half the year's already gone.
Yeah, he's halfway through a 3-year contract. Yeah. Well, Shannon thinks we can find somebody. So does Paul.
Yeah, one of the things the district does, and the reason why it's a good place to work, is we have a staff development program at the district, and people are given the opportunity to go train, to job share, to job shadow, to get certifications, advanced certifications beyond what's required of the current job they're in. They get to attend leadership seminars, conferences, and so I think it's a place where we maximize the chance and the opportunity for the current staff to promote when positions are open. So I know.
Who's up now?
First.
I don't
Nick?
remember.
Is it Nick? Okay.
Oh,
Thank you.
I think for 2 reasons, and this goes across the board, whenever possible, we should push to hire people within the basin because it has an overall growth effect throughout our economy. But second to that, and you bring up a good point, whenever I work at a project for Midkiff and Associates, and you're working with people outside the basin, the learning curve to bring people up to both the nomenclature, the regulatory world we exist here in Tahoe, it's a big learning curve, as I'm sure everyone on staff would say. So what you need to do, if you can hire people within the basin and you can limit that learning curve, even if it's a little bit more expensive, in the long run, I think it'll be significantly cheaper. And so across the board, I advocate for hiring people within the basin, and especially in an instance with legal framework, because you need someone that has an intimate knowledge of the regulatory and framework that exists here in the Tahoe Basin.
Yeah, if you're comparing similar people for that job, every time it's hire local. You know, you got people in our community, you know, and replacement for you in the future. If we can keep it in-house, I'd be all for that as well. So if you got some, for some reason, the other guy's more experienced, has more knowledge, and maybe a better fit for those reasons, that could be different, but all day, hire within and hire local.
I think the question also was not just local or outsourced, but an in-house versus the way we have it now, where we have an attorney's firm under contract. I looked at it a little bit. I think, Paul, I don't know if you and I have talked about that. I'm not sure that we have, it pencils out enough to hire a full-time lawyer working for the district, as opposed to hiring a consultant, which is what we have now, that comes in on an as-needed basis. So that being said, when our contract was up currently with whoever we have, we'll investigate, you know, within the basin, whoever we want the most qualified person. I have to say right now, Gary, who's up here all the time, has extensive experience in the basin. He's been up here quite a bit of years, and when we have questions as a board to the legal staff, whether it's involving one of the partnerships in the basin, whether it's other municipalities in the basin, whether it's El Dorado County or Placer County, I'm very impressed with Gary's current knowledge of that. Not meaning that, I'm not saying, you know, we're absolutely wedded to him, but he's a strong person right now.
I agree with Randy, and though I understand that it's would be better to hire local, and in some ways it would probably be, you know, make us more friendly to the community. But it's not only, you know, the agencies here locally in the Tahoe Basin, it's statewide and federal. There's a lot of, you know, in this industry, there's a lot of information. And so I agree with Randy. I trust Gary because he has an immense amount of knowledge.
Yeah, it's a good point, particularly at the state level.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's, even though we have all the regulatory stuff here, I mean, being able to talk, you know, to be knowledgeable federal and state is huge.
Right, but I guess what I would say is, working again from the local, regional to the federal level, what I can say is you could be anywhere in California and you could know state rules and regs, law. You could be anywhere in the country and know the federal rules and regs and law. But it's very difficult to acquire that knowledge here in Tahoe. So me living here in South Lake Tahoe by no means diminishes my ability to do permitting and planning work at the state or federal level. It's just another learning curve, or it's just more information I have in my mind. But then fundamentally, I agree with Randy. I think it should be contract based out. But more importantly, I think, going back to a more broader point, we need to hire people within the Lake Tahoe Basin. I was stopped at the gym yesterday because someone said, "Hey, what are you guys doing hiring people outside the basin?" I said, "I'm not even on the board." And I think it's an important thing that, and again, I don't know if that's real or perceived. You know, there's only so much time to research these type of things, but it goes back to kind of the community engagement point I brought up earlier.
Gary seems pretty sharp. Seems like a pretty sharp guy, too.
Just at the time of the hiring, one of the of Gary's firm, one of the concerns on the board was that by hiring a law firm from outside the basin, you eliminated conflicts of interest. Just I remember that was a topic of discussion when Gary's firm was hired. So by hiring a firm from outside the basin, it eliminated that. Has anything to add, Jim? No other questions? There you go. Kirk, you go first.
Your early statement stated that you're looking we see positive change for students? Certainly that's a work that is done. A lot of people, and of course, positive or negative is in the eyes of the beholder. How do you define positive change?
How do I define a positive change? Meeting the challenges of tomorrow without sacrificing standard of living. So fundamentally, we know there's going to be disagreements. Like at the city council, the loop road's a very hot conversation. We don't really touch that here. These type of different things. And there's going to be a natural disagreement. And disagreement is fundamentally good. I think positive change, if I could be more broad, is that the understanding that people will in fact disagree with you, and that doesn't make them wrong and you right, you smart and them dumb. To me, the positive change I want to be able to bring is an ability that regardless of our differences, we can come together, have a conversation, and look, what are the challenges we're facing tomorrow? How do we start to meet those challenges? And how do we do it most importantly in a positive way? And by that I mean, how can we grow our economy? How can we have jobs in our community? How can we start to solve the environmental challenges of, of today and tomorrow? That's what I see as a positive change, is not so much the idea of, this is good and this is bad, but the recognition that things need to change and that we need to start to move forward in that direction. And what I would want to do, again, it goes back to collaboration, bringing people in the thing and understand that we're all from a different way of life. We have different biases, these type of different things, but we come together, we have this conversation, and we may not get everything we want, but at least we start to address the situations we have in good faith and start to move forward with addressing those problems.
Yes, so we're
Should you have a community
Mm-hmm.
that brings back some of the population lost
Mm-hmm.
less and provide a living wage and a really good job, not a school, but allow a facility to have a population. Until you get a return of those people folks that have all left this area, I don't see any positive change. Some of the positive change that has been described as positive change, as I think benefits certain individuals and certain groups, it's not positive. So that's my opinion. And I've been here too many years. I guess I've seen it all. And a lot of it we have control of, a lot of it we don't. But our economy is over the hill. It's gone east from us. We don't have an economy here. And to expect that we can depend on the tourist visitation economy when you have a couple days a week maybe, or a couple of months a year to rely on an economy, things are not going to change.
I couldn't agree with you more, and I think fundamentally the thing that from a much broader economic development standpoint, having an economy, and this is how I've always framed it to people, if you have a stool and you have one leg holding it up, it's not very stable. We need to have multiple legs. We need to start diversify our economy, and we need to start doing it rapidly. One of the things that's truly concerning is that when you look at projections, say for loss of snowpack, diminishing lake clarity, no matter how many BMPs we install or CIP projects we complete, we need to start diversifying our economy, and we need to start doing it now. Because I agree with you wholeheartedly that our economy needs some significant work. And it's broader than just the STPUD board. It would require a structural reevaluation of how we do things here in the basin. From a regulatory environment specifically, I can speak to that intelligently, and I can tell you the way it's set up today, you are getting a diminishing returns both in your economic output and your environmental improvements. And I would like to have that conversation with anyone that's willing to have it.
Well, John, in my opinion, any change is good. So it's exciting when you do something different and something changes. We have a lot of issues up here. And I'm not sure exactly if that was a water or sewer question. Just kidding. We have a lot of work, and we got to keep people here, and that is a goal for everyone here. You know, we're all here because we care about our community and want to do what's right and what's best for our community, and that's why we're here.
Yeah.
Take more of the snow blow.
Yeah. And obviously our primary function is delivering good water and good quality water and good sewer services to the people. But I think that a lot of this we're talking about is out of the scope of this organization, but not necessarily. I think that we need to be involved in a lot of these community things, even if it's just to have our voice at the district. And like, for example, the Loop Road, it doesn't really affect us, but yes, it does. We've had staff involved in Loop Road discussions any chance we get, because we are not sure who's going to pay for the infrastructure when they go and tear up some of our main water system feed systems right there by the bottle shop. You know, staff estimates it could cost as much as $5 million to relocate the infrastructure related to the Loop Road. Well, guess what? They've assured us that we aren't going to pay for that. Of course, we don't have it in writing. So we're actively involved in that project. Just like I mentioned, we want to be involved in the affordable housing and all the other ones in town. So even though we aren't, I don't want us to be a planning agency. I don't want us to be a city council. I don't want us to think that we're more than what we are. I do think we need to be in the conversation.
I agree with basically what everybody said. We are an important part of the community. We need to be involved, and I think change is good. I think change is good as well. But we do need to keep people in this community and attract people to move here, to live here, to want to raise their families, and to be a part of this community.
Yeah, can we get time off for good behavior?
Yeah.
Well, just take a minute, maybe time for one question. Unless you want to go, unless you're ready to go with me. Close it.
Thanks, John and Lou, for coming.
Okay, when we move into our closing comments, so you started some current.
All righty. Well, thank you all. 2 minutes. I won't take 5, I promise. Thank you all for coming tonight. This is a good turnout for an important position, I think, for us, and I'm excited. A lot of people talking about team, and you know, I love sports and I love playing and coaching, and one of the things I learned from playing sports is how to be a team player, and I think that's real important, you know, to be a board member. How to work with the board, how to work well with the district and the employees and the community as a whole. And you know, I think my business background, my environmental background, and just the fact that I've been here forever and understand our community and what our community wants and maybe needs to learn, I just know I can be a good voice. And if elected, I will work hard and be in the community's best interests.
Well, thanks everyone for coming. I know we have a lot going on this evening, whether it's baseball or politics and another sort. I'd just like to say, I think that you've kind of got a feel for where I'm coming from. In fact, I've got a feel for where everyone's coming from after tonight, so it's been a good deal. So I don't know if I need to go and reiterate everything, but except for just to say that I kind of want to continue along the line we're going. I want to continue with adding fire hydrants and undersized water line upgrades. What we're doing now, we're kind of slowly chipping away at those things. I want to continue with upgrading the infrastructure, kind of slowly chipping away at those things. Just kind of want to, you know, it's funny, meters never came up tonight. I want to continue on getting the meters installed. You know, love them or hate them, and I was against them at the start. I always hated the inequality of the neighbor with the meter and the guy next to him that just rented all the time. So I want to continue getting the meters in place so that we're all on a level playing field. Once we're all on a level playing field, I think we'll be able to fine-tune our rates to get them in line with, so we're paying about what we used to before. And as a matter of fact, when I was first on the board, that's one of the things we were able to change is the percentage that was fixed versus the percentage that was metered to kind of equalize things out and reduce the impact of people that had the meters. So let's see, I got the 30-second thing. So just to get back to my original deal, kind of a continuation of where we are, looking forward, you know, transparency, getting the public involved, getting involved in the public decision-making process. Steady as she goes.
I agree. I like the course that the board and the district is on. I think there's a fine balance between infrastructure improvement, keeping costs affordable for our community, and I'm aware of all that, and I would like to continue to be on the board, and I'd appreciate anyone's vote.
So, thank you everyone for coming. With my closing statement, I guess I would just like to say, we continue to chip along, but we could do a lot more. There's intellectual capital that exists within this district, and there's intellectual capital that exists within this community that we are not utilizing today. There is a messaging problem that exists within the district, and it's not a problem of what you're doing, but it's a problem of the narrative of how you're sharing it with the community. We could improve that. You could be the champions of so many different things if we just changed it a little bit. If we developed a conversation in the narrative of the community to explain why you're doing it and what you're doing and the benefit as a whole. I want to work to bring collaboration together from various different interests. Use my interest and my expertise and my knowledge from all the different regulatory agencies to start to bring people together. And fundamentally, I want to use what I've learned throughout this campaign, and that being to reach out to the people that aren't being heard, the people that don't have a voice, the people that need to hear things, because this is where the challenge is faced. This is where we need to spend our time. We have huge challenges we're going to face both locally, nationally, and internationally, and we have a moral obligation to be part of that solution. And fundamentally, I think there's so much we can do, and I'm not going to limit what we can do. Like I said, I want to listen to everyone's idea. I don't care if it's in the box or out of the box. I want to hear what you have to say, where you want to go, because there's great ideas that exist. And all opportunity exists with that basic understanding that if you're open and you're willing to listen to ideas, there is nothing we can't accomplish. And that's why I want to work with this board, because of that possibility. And that's why I'm asking for your vote on November 8th. And I would like to thank you so much for your time this evening, and hopefully you can catch the end of the baseball game. Thank you so much. All right.
You know,